is always one of the most enjoyable occasions of the year. A school is known by its graduates, and it is delightful to have such a wonderful representative of Perkins School of Theology as we have in Katherine Glaze Lyle. We're delighted to welcome all of you here, especially this evening those who are family members of Katherine and her invited guests. And if you are among that group, could you stand so that we can recognize you? Family members and invited guests, come on. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We also would like to recognize those present tonight who are SMU trustees, members of the Perkins Executive Board, and members of Perkins Alumni Council. If you are in that group, would you stand also so that we can... Thank you. You're going to be doing a whole lot of standing, as it turns out. Okay. I'd like to invite here to the lectern Reverend Brandon Dollarite, who will bring us our invocation.
Let us pray over our meal. Gracious God, as we gather here tonight, we give you thanks for this day. We thank you for this time that we can gather here each year to celebrate the special people who have walked through the halls here. Tonight we come to celebrate Reverend Glaze Lyle. We just thank you for all of her accomplishments, and we thank you for all those who have gone on before us that we've mentioned over the years that we've celebrated. We thank you for Perkins School of Theology, for its faculty and its staff. We ask, O God, now that you would bless this food to the nourishment of each of our bodies, and bless the conversations that happen around the tables this evening. For it's in your name we do pray. Amen.
We'll get started with our program, and please go ahead and finish eating as we speak. I am delighted to welcome, of course, to Perkins, but especially to this evening and to this lectern, my boss, Peter Moore, who is the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs ad interim. Peter stepped into the breach when Steve Corral, our former president, became a president and left us very recently, and we are thrilled to have him at SMU and to be working closely with us here at Perkins, but especially now to be here this evening. So, Peter?
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Dean Hill. It is my privilege also to be here this evening and to welcome each of you on behalf of President Turner, who is up the hill at the Tate Lecture tonight, but wishes everybody well, and especially wanted to send his greetings to you, Katherine. So it's a great opportunity for me to be a part of this celebration. This is the first time I have been at one of these events, and it's delightful to see all of you here, and again, to be part of an opportunity to honor one of your distinguished alums. Perkins School of Theology holds an important role within Southern Methodist University as one of the first 3 original schools established here more than a century ago. Throughout its history, Perkins has produced graduates who have led and continue to lead not only the United Methodist Church, but other denominations as they seek to proclaim the love of Jesus Christ to all the world. Many Perkins alumni have distinguished themselves in ministry and service, including tonight's honoree, whose life and work have profoundly impacted both the church and the community in North Texas, and whose support has helped shape Perkins School of Theology and Southern Methodist University. So we at SMU are grateful for the role Perkins and its graduates play and continue to play within the university, the community, and the world. And again, we welcome each of you tonight as we celebrate the contributions of the 2019 Distinguished Alumna. So I'm going to just add a few personal comments off script for a moment, because this is the first opportunity I've had to meet Katherine as well. But my father was a United Methodist pastor for 40 years in Michigan, and so I know what it means to be a PK, and all of the work that pastors put in for congregations of all sizes. My father had congregations, 3 at one point charges when he started, and at other points 2 churches that he pastored as well. And so he put in long hours and many opportunities to hear from folks in the congregation with all that goes along with that. And so I really do appreciate pastors and all the work that they put in for their congregation. So it's a wonderful opportunity to celebrate a pastor here tonight.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Dr. Dollarite, Reverend Dr. Dollarite, is the chair of our Alumni Council, and I'd like to invite you to step up here to the lectern, along with Provost Moore and one other person, Katherine Glaze Lyle. This is our photo op. Katherine,
Oh, okay.
congratulations.
Thank you
If
so
you
much.
would like
Isn't
to-
that beautiful?
Like to join us here?
Sure.
Dean, that sign?
Thank
Thank
Find out
you.
who really gives the orders around here.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure, Hillsman.
That's right.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, you'll have to earn it in a moment. You already have, all right. I'd also like to invite now to the lectern Reverend John Thornburg, the Vice President and Area Staff for the Texas Methodist Foundation, another wonderful partner for Perkins School of Theology. John?
Dean Hill and friends, as I look out over the room, it's just, there are certain occasions for people when just about everyone who's the most precious to you in life is in the same place. And so, Katherine, I hope this is a wonderful drink of grace for you tonight. And so, wow, good for you. I first came to know Katherine while serving on the district committee on ministry of the old Dallas-Denton district. As was sometimes the case, word of promising ministerial candidates circulated at those meetings. And the word about Katherine was that she was one of the finest people we could ever imagine coming before us. There was a lot of cred before you showed up. When she did come before us, I found myself amazed at the serenity with which she spoke. She said she wanted to make herself available to God and to the church as a candidate for ministry. And if it was the committee's will and decision to have her as a candidate, that would be welcome. Though if the decision went the other way, she'd be okay. I'm so thankful the committee said yes. More than that, I'm thankful that she said yes to God long before she ever got to the committee. Now, as the daughter of 2 deeply faithful Southern Baptists, the fact that she chose United Methodism was more than noteworthy. Choosing the theology of grace was a big deal for Katherine. And I imagine that most everyone in the room can name a moment, or more than one, in which you have seen grace personified in her. Since she chose to be part of the Wesleyan witness, she has also been more able than some to name the tragedy of seeing so many Wesleyan hearts turn strangely cold in recent days. Her personality and her vocabulary intersect in the phrase, "Let's see what we can get done." On the many occasions that I have invited her to be generous with time, talent, or money, her characteristic response is, "I can do that." I'm also aware that on the occasions in which she has said no to me, she had the maddening capacity to see what I had been too impatient to see. When she has been part of making a decision with me on any matter, her input always makes me better. Katherine is generous in praise and can be a very enthusiastic and persuasive ambassador for things that she thinks make a difference. At the same time, she does not suffer fools gladly, including me. And yet here I am, drawn back into her esteem by the very theology of grace which she gladly embraced. Catherine's been a faithful attendee of what in Dallas is called the Wesley Study Group, started over 50 years ago at University Park United Methodist Church, and now she's one of the backbones of that group. She's always scouting for the person, there are a few in this room who she scouted. She's always scouting for the person who can bring new insight to the group, and has been a champion of raising up women in that group and in other places in which women have been scorned, marginalized, or underrepresented. Katherine has believed in me ever since we became friends, and has nurtured me in various pursuits. So as I tell my story, you think of yours. When Christopher got married, Katherine made provision for all the hotel guests to receive cookies and milk just before bedtime. And so imagine my surprise and delight when she commissioned me to write a poem for people to read as they ate their cookies. When I was heading an endowment campaign for the Hymn Society in the US and Canada, we encountered some real bumps on the road. And on one particular occasion, had a crushing letdown when a group of 25 potential donors to this campaign in the Dallas area all said no to an invitation to dinner and a hymn festival in their honor. All 25 said no. The dinner was to have been in Katherine's home. She had graciously made her home and the food available. And having to cancel everything at the last minute was devastating and embarrassing. Katherine was both gracious and encouraging, and her belief in my leadership of the Hymn Society played a large role in our ability to pick ourselves off the floor of that disappointment and move along. And we made the goal. This school means the world to Katherine. And when something means the world to Katherine, that person or organization receives the blessing of her vision and her drive to make things better than they are. Because Katherine is not boastful and therefore does not shout her accomplishments from the rooftop, I feel privileged to be among those with whom she shares stories about what she's passionate about. She's passionate about Perkins School of Theology. And this school is mightily blessed to have her among its alumni. So tonight, friends, I'm honored to stand here and give praise and thanks to God for Katherine, not just as an alumna of Perkins, but now as the newest addition to that special group called Distinguished Alumni.
Okay, is that okay? So, wow. I do want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to John Thornburg, who started this whole thing, calling me one day and saying, I know you really well, but I need a few details. Because I'm doing this. I am proposing you for this award. And then thanks to Tom Locke with the Texas Methodist Foundation, on whose board I sit. Thanks to Diane Presley and Deborah Hobbs Mason, two of my dear clergywomen friends, sisters, and at times members of the Wesley Study Group with me. They also wrote letters, and I'm grateful. I still don't know why they thought it was the right thing to do, but I am grateful. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Peter. All of you for being here and your kind words. My daughter is here, Sharon, and her husband, Mark, and it's just a joy to have them here. And then there's all these wonderful friends who are here, and I won't call everybody's name, but I do want to especially mention Etta Simmons, who is here, right here. Etta cared for my parents for years and years and years. And my parents are both dead now. And having Etta here is the closest thing I can have to having them here. And Etta had a death in her family today, and she came anyway. And so you all can pray for her and for her family. And then I look around, and here's a table of my partners and social venture partners, and the Union Coffee crew that's over here. I sit on that board, too. I'm on the SVP board, too, and the Union Coffee board. And then my Sunday school class is here in droves, and First Church. And so I'm so grateful to all of them. I came to Perkins because I wanted to learn how to study the Bible so that I could teach adult Sunday school classes at Lover's Lane. I started off like a lot of us do, teaching children. How many of us have taught children's Sunday school? Lots of us, right? And then I got asked to teach youth Sunday school classes, and then I got asked to teach adult Sunday school classes. And I've always thought that you get education not just to get content, but to learn skills and how to think in various disciplines. I knew how to think historically. I had 2 degrees in history. I know how to do that. I didn't know how to think biblically or theologically. And I didn't want to be teaching irresponsibly. So since there was a school in my backyard, not literally, but it's right here in Dallas, and I lived here, I thought, I'll go to school while the kids are in school. So Sharon has a brother who's 3 years younger than she is. When Christopher was in kindergarten, I started coming to classes at Perkins, very part-time. So I could go to school when they were in school themselves, and that way I could still drive carpool and be the Bluebird mommy and the Cub Scout mommy and serve lunch in the cafeteria, which is what you did in our school district. I took 1 or 2 classes a semester. That was all I could do. I was an ex-Baptist who had found her theological home in the Wesleyan tradition. That happened at Lover's Lane. And I just knew there was so much to learn. And so I enrolled in the Masters of Theological Studies program. And I don't know, Craig, if it's as loose now as it was then, but it was loose back then. So I took a couple of intro level classes, and then I just blithely signed up for a senior seminar that Clayton Oliphant had told me I should take. Some of you know Clayton. It was a class that a woman named Marjorie Proctor Smith taught called Women's Spiritual Quest. I hear some ums and nods about Marjorie. Marjorie was wonderful and a complete character. And so I'm taking this class, and one week, Marjorie sends us home with the assignment for the next week's class. Come back prepared to describe your vision of the female face of God. Oh my gosh. This little ex-Baptist was shaking in her boots. The female face of God? What did that even mean? So I did the only thing I knew to do. I went home and pulled out a concordance. This was before the internet was so easy to use. And my Bible. And I started looking for things that were not just feminine, like not just nurturing, but giving birth, right? Things that only a woman could do. And I kept writing and making a list and writing and writing and writing. And I came back to the seminar the next week so excited because I had this list of all these references. And I said to the group, "You're not going to believe this." But there's all these things about God as a woman in the Bible. I mean, I was a total goober. You've got to realize. I don't know whether Marjorie had a harder time not laughing or not crying, or maybe both. And the class with her. But they did neither. They didn't laugh at me, and they didn't cry at my incredible ignorance, so that I had to continue taking classes. Before my last year, I was constantly part-time. But then I needed to do an internship. And I was sent, Bert Affleck sent me to Oak Lawn United Methodist Church to be an intern. And that was when I started going full-time. And as much as I loved going to school, I realized that I loved working in the church more. If they had told me they were going to move the chairs in Fellowship Hall at midnight, I would have been there. I loved it. And I had not started the candidacy process. My mentor pastor, Milton Gutierrez, encouraged me to think about a vocation, and I realized that indeed I wanted to pursue ordination. I came here to take some classes, remember? And I ended up finding a whole new way of being me. So graduation time finally came. And Joette Bassler, who had taught me Greek and New Testament, just fabulous teacher, said to me one day, "I just don't know what it's going to be like without you here, Katherine. You've been here on the eternal plan." Well, I laughed, just like you just did, because I thought I was through with Perkins. But I was so wrong. Now, the truth is, I always wanted to get a doctor of ministry. And every time I would get my personal stuff in order to start on that degree program, my bishop would move me to a new church. And I just didn't have the bandwidth to start a new church. Now, you pastors in the room, you know what it's like. You walk around never knowing where you're going to step on the next bomb that's buried, the IED that's there, that's waiting for you, you know. And I just couldn't do it all. So I never did. I never got that other degree. But I'm still learning through Perkins. And what I know now for sure is I don't ever want to be through with Perkins. There's so much to learn, so much room to grow. And I want to share just a few things that I started learning here, all of which I'm still learning. I learned to question the easy answer. Dana Fuel taught me that. In my intro Old Testament class, when she graded my paper on Cain and Abel, she didn't like it. I was not used to getting a C in anything. I learned to listen with respect to ideas that were not my own or not the same as mine. Billy Abraham and John Deschner modeled that in systematics, and we practiced it in every class. I learned to listen hard past quirks that made it difficult to understand. I studied Christian heritage, church history with Dr. Klaus Penzel. And first place, I realized that I had to come early and sit right there because he talked. He turned his face to his right most of the time. And he had a very soft voice. And so if you weren't sitting over here, it was harder to hear him. But then one day, he's giving a lecture, and he's talking about spiritual character. What? Can anybody guess what that is? Spiritual character. Diane, you get 2 points. Spiritual character. I learned to listen hard, and I learned to speak carefully. Joe Allen, with whom I studied ethics, was the most careful speaker I ever heard. If Joe Allen used a word, he knew exactly what it meant, and he picked it because it expressed the exact thing he wanted to express. No sloppiness with him. I learned to expand my idea of God and God's ways in the world. I've already told you one such story in Marjorie's class. I experienced people who held me accountable for the quality of my work, at the same time caring deeply pastorally for me. Billy Abraham was in charge of grading my credo and supervised me in systematics. And while I was in that process, our son became very ill. And Billy didn't give me a pass on systematics just because I had a sick kid. But what he did, while holding me accountable, was to pray for me, to pray for my child, to continue to ask me about Christopher. And I have sought to live out that mix of rigor and care in all the churches I've served and in the volunteer responsibilities that now occupy so much of my time and energy. I also learned to sing new songs here at Perkins. Thanks, not at all the least, from my friend John Thornburg, from Michael Hahn, and now from Marcel, who is just amazing. Now, Sharon is probably going to groan when I say the next thing, because as a child, she always did when I said this. But I believe there's a song for every occasion. I promise I'm not going to sing it. But as I wrote this, I had the same experience that happened a long time ago. I was writing my credo, and a credo, for those of you who don't know, is a summary of your understanding of Christian faith. And it's as close as a dissertation as you have if you go to Perkins to get a master's. So I'm writing about eschatology, the study of the last things. And I began to realize there was a song playing in my mind. It was the song of the occasion. It was, is, and has been One of my deep prayers for all these years. Love divine, all loves excelling. Joy of heaven to earth come down. Fix in us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithful mercies crown. And then skip to the last verse. Finish then thy new creation. Pure and spotless let us be. Let us see thy great salvation perfectly restored in thee. Changed from glory into glory, till in heaven we take our place, till we cast our crowns before thee, lost in wonder, love, and praise. When I look at my life in relationship to Perkins, I realize that I am here on the eternal plan. Not just Joette's eternal plan about a degree, but a much bigger eternal plan, God's eternal plan of growth in grace. John, you nailed it. That is for each of us and all of us. And I just want to say, I am so glad that I was accepted into the eternal plan here. And I experienced this relationship as a foretaste of the joy that is to come. I'm grateful beyond words for all that Perkins has brought me, and for each of you who are here with me tonight to give thanks for this wonderful, wonderful school. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I do feel I absolutely need to add my voice briefly to those expressing appreciation. By the way, I should tell you there's probably a brochure about the Doctor of Ministry out there if you want to pick that up on your way out. Strictly speaking, each one of us is one of a kind, but I have to say Katherine is more one of a kind than most of us. A lot of this you know, but she is a 3-time graduate of SMU. 1971 undergrad, had an MA in 1973, and then about 2 decades later she came back to Perkins as, let's say, an established student, okay, where she distinguished herself. She, as you know, has been a pastor. You might not know that she was assigned to several ministry settings that required extensive healing in those settings, and that seemed to be a particular gift of hers that is a rare and very valuable gift in ministry. You know, of course, and it's represented here tonight, that she's involved in many community service boards and committees. I don't know if it has been mentioned, but she's also a very long-time member of the Perkins Executive Board. What's more, she's been a longtime friend to the personnel of Perkins, particularly to the dean, something that I value very greatly personally. She's always willing to help, of course, financially, but also with time, effort, and emotional support for all of us here. She doesn't take credit for what she does for Perkins and other organizations. That's not her style, but a very great deal of what she does, you should know, is behind the scenes. Among the many initiatives I will remember her for here, you're not going anywhere, but I mean, someday I will, was the creation of the Bill Bryan Conference Room in the intern program office. A lot of you know Bill of saintly memory. That meant the world to Bill himself, and encourage all of us to remember him each time we walk into that sanctified space. Thank you particularly for that. She's a fine thinker. And what particularly distinguishes her is the fact that she's also a fine listener. She considers what others say and factors that into her own thinking. Every time you talk to her, you can see the wheels turning. She's thinking. And unsurprisingly, therefore, Katherine is well respected. She's one of those E.F. Hutton types. She speaks and we all listen. Now finally, you know this already, but I have to say, finally, this is by no means a given in higher education. She's fun. She's a joy to be with. I have never spent time with Katherine and not had abundant reason to smile no matter what the topic was. There is always lots of laughter embedded within deep discussions of theological education, the state of the church, the direction of higher education, and many other serious topics. It's always a delight. And so for these reasons, of course, and all those enumerated before, we are very pleased to bestow upon you the title of Distinguished Alumna. Of course, this only recognizes formally what we all already know to be true. We appreciate you so much and love you and are so grateful to have you as part of our family here. And so now I want to invite another one of our family, Connie Nelson, Reverend Connie Nelson, to come and give the benediction. Thank you. It's possible to have too much of a good thing. In my case, it's height. There. Yeah.
I got a little bit of that going on. Before I offer the benediction, an event like this, as we all know, cannot happen without a lot of work behind the scenes. And so I would like to take this moment to thank my staff. And as I call your name, will you please stand? Pam Goolsby, Rachel Holmes, and Bridget Anderson is up the hill studying for her MBA, so we'll celebrate her in absentia. Thank you. Katherine, what a gift you are to Perkins, and what a gift you are to each person in this room. We are grateful for you, and it's been a joy to celebrate you tonight. Receive now this benediction. Go forth into the world, into this community, to serve God and your neighbor in all that you do. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Go in peace.